I'm sure is sitting somewhere here, shared with me when I was a doctoral student, ethnographically recording experiences of being architects in India. Because it is such a wonderful story, I will narrate it in full, so please bear with me. I'm not going to try and do a Badri, but this is how he started. He said, this is the very beginning of my career, Joydeep. I was just out of college and working with Katie. I just saw Katie move. So Katie, you've got to corroborate this story, right? And in those days, but we continue, we were involved with some projects in and around Delhi. One such project was to design a small community hall for this village. This was a very small project, hardly anything. I just had to provide the drawings for the buildings. There was no site visit, nothing, just to make the drawings. Now, while I was working, I began to wonder if my drawings would make sense to guys on site, especially since there was not to be any contact between me and them. So I had an ingenious idea. Instead of making the drawings according to the standard conventions, that is, the plan on one sheet, elevation on the next, and so on and so forth, I took a big sheet, I made the plan in the center, then the front elevation below it, right, the back elevation above it, the right elevation on the right-hand side, and so on. Happy with myself, I sent off the drawing to the site. Months later, but we continued, that the building was built. There was a small opening ceremony for it, and I'm invited, so I go there. The ceremony takes place, the building looks fine, everything is great, everyone is happy. I'm then introduced to the master mason as the architect of this place. We get talking. I tell him the building looks great, what a great job he has done, etc., etc. When suddenly, this guy fishes out the drawing I had made. He then points to the center of the plan and says, "Sir, we have made this one building. When are we going to make the other 4 buildings?" Right? So, hilarities and jokes aside, I mentioned Badri's story because to me, this story is extremely telling about a number of issues that concern all of us who are in one way or the other intimately involved with the production of the built environment. At one level, I also believe that this story is very telling of the level of craft and skill that one finds in this country and how such skill produces the environmental bearing of our existence. At another level, I find the story very telling about the question of translation, that is the translation of ideas to drawings, from drawings to building, and so on and forth, which I will argue we architects and designers often overlook and unproblematically assume as being seamless, since it is precisely this idea of seamlessness that continually buttresses our claims to architecture, design, and being architects. But more than any of these, I bring up this story today because I believe it continually points us to what I call the constitutive outside of designers' knowledge and of designers in our everyday. It is constitutive because it is always and already accompanying our practice, outside because we continually tend to deny its being in our efforts to emerge as experts. At the JSAA, however, we intend to flip these things over and engage and indeed begin from this constitutive outside, as it were, to reproduce, maintain, represent, contest, and create the built environment. And if this is the horizon of the condition of possibilities that encounter us, what I would like to do next is place before all of you some principles and ideals that animate and guide practices of the Tyndall School of Art and Architecture. The first of these is to foster an environment where design, indeed any form of knowledge, is not seen as a finite, autonomous, pre-given domain, but rather a terrain which is as much in the making as the very object it seeks to investigate, represent, and reproduce. Following this is our second principle, which rejects the idea of a singular understanding of the designer, architect, practitioner of the built environment. Instead, we wish to provide learners with a multidisciplinary, intellectually rigorous, and open-ended environment where they can chart their own trajectories, thereby reproducing themselves as critical and self-reflective agents in the constitution, representation, maintenance, and reproduction of the built environment. The third principle driving us is our belief that as practitioners involved in the sustenance, contestation, representation, and reproduction of the built environment, we are perhaps uniquely positioned to imagine and foster an intellectual framework that moves beyond binary modes of thinking that constantly opposes experts to laymen. Education to practice, entrepreneurship to criticality, theory to practicality, thinking to doing, making, and so on. Finally, but perhaps most importantly, the fourth principle which guides us is the idea that learning only happens and knowledge is only produced when learners, that's both faculty and students, collaborate as peers and as active agents in meaningful ways. Whether this be through the fine arts, the social sciences, the humanities, the sciences, the technology, through law, that is either as artists, historians, policymakers, lawyers, environmental consultants, development experts. This pro-premier schools are ready